legitimise our perspective of modern depravity. However, some of the most underprivileged British landscapes exist away from the hinterland. This presentation will discuss the decline of seaside towns and how selected photographers have addressed this. Although the case studies exist separately from one another, published at varying periods of time, they consider a united affair and examine opposing issues. Whilst actively functioning as flaneurs, the following photographers highlight the changes of coastal resorts, acting as a reflection of British society and representation of shoreline culture. Guardian photography critic Sean O'Hagan issued an article in 2002 titled "Wish You Were Here." The column addressed that the late John Hind once told an interviewer that his colour photographs were an attempt to visualise heaven. The John Hind postcard collection was commissioned by Butlins holiday camps to establish a mass production of cards, ideal for promotion and to depict an idyllic view of the resort. John Hind employed German photographers Almar Ludwig and Edmund Nagel, alongside British photographer David Noble, who utilised the style established by John Hind. The staged directorial mode was comparable to the innovative technical brilliance of Jeff Wall and Gregory Crewdson. His deployment of super-saturated trademark bright colours looked ethereal and symbolised nirvana, fitting the vivid and modern new look that Butlins was seeking. Their slogan, "Our true intent is all for your delight," later known as an excerpt from Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream, was subsequently published as a photo book, introduced and edited by Martin Clark. The publication features a photograph in Butlins Minehead by David Noble, depicting a scene of an overcrowded outdoor swimming pool, dominated by an otherworldly monorail concealing the skyline and mass-produced steel structures. This congested nature depicts a sense of staged enjoyment, in addition to an overpowering impression of fabrication and the construction of reality. The notion of clever composition and challenged certainty appears further in Butlins Forelli Train and Panorama. Noble paints a hyperreal scene of saturated blue waters comparable to tropical seas, where camp attractions stretch the border between land and sea, ferrying holidaymakers by train adjacent to the coastline. Recognising the aspects of hyperreality, cultural theorist Jean Baudrillard's writing on Disney World is pertinent. Baudrillard acknowledged the manufactured synthetic theme park, juxtaposing truth and fantasy in an all-encompassing dreamlike world, where the perception of reality is challenged. The writings outline hyperreality as the failure to differentiate reality and fiction in postmodern technology. Thus, the image is no longer distinguishable from the real, it is the real. In 2009, the British photographer Anna Fox was commissioned by Butlins holiday camps to produce Resort One, a series of images focused on celebrating the unique tourist institution and illustrating the larger-than-life quality of Butlins Bognor Regis. The pictures were set to create scenes reminiscent to the John Hyde studio postcard photographs of the 1970s. In spite of using an equivalent technique and style, the outcome unintentionally highlighted how Butlins as a holiday destination is declining in popularity. The result is an exaggerated narrative warped to satisfy Butlins' idealistic standards. Everything has been emphasised. Employing fill flash injects an interrogative light, flattening the image and exploiting every aspect of the Butlins experience. Unlike Hind, the photographs were not intended for promotional purposes, but to create an image of a contemporary leisure industry. The work sits within social documentary and tries to analyse and penetrate reality. Between 2009 and 2011, Anna Fox documented the changing face of Butlins Bognor Regis, reflecting wider changes in British society and the contemporary visitors the camp was attracting. The consecutive series entitled Resort 2 delves into the unadulterated nature of adult breaks at Butlins, this predominantly being bachelor or hen weekends, rather than typical family holiday makers. As with Resort 1, the notion of using harsh flash cast an intrusive light. However, the social circumstances are polar opposite, reflective of the current institution. The images are stylised in a point-and-shoot manner. Unlevelled horizons and motion blur help to emphasise this. Fox emulates a disposable camera technique, something all too familiar within family holiday snapshots. The noun flaneur, first recorded in the works of Charles Baudelaire, defines a man who saunters around observing society. Often explored through photography, the notion of flaneur is practiced in photography, where the lone walker functions as a detached observer. As with Fox, magnum photographer Martin Parr utilises the concept of flaneur, working as a voyeuristic stroller moving through an unfamiliar landscape. In Jerry Badger's introduction for Martin Parr's The Last Resort, Parr states, "If the seaside was tatty and more than a little run down, it was also vibrant." The effects of decline in New Brighton socially and economically were distinct, comparable to a lot of shoreline resorts from the 1960s onwards, experiencing hardship by the advent of cheaper overseas travel and the absence of new investment. The Last Resort documents an honest, subjective representation that follows holidaymakers in a crowded British retreat, exploiting working class leisure. From 1983 to 1985, Martin Parr made recurrent visits to New Brighton in the thick of uncommonly hot summers, which attracted populous crowds on weekends and bank holidays, ensuring that the resort was buoyant, as well as inevitably under pressure and run down, uncovering what might be seen to be a snide and judgmental portrayal of national characteristics. At first glance, The Last Resort was recognised as a patronising view of the working class, a ruthless scrutiny of that physical place and social circumstance. Perceived as a demoralising statement about society, The Last Resort was observed to be condescending to New Brighton and the careless working class families who have traditionally escaped to the seaside resort. Consider, for example, one of Parr's less familiar photographs of a crowd of people sat in deck chairs on a weathered landscape. The grass is patchy, flattened and undernourished, echoing a sense of abandonment and depravity recurrent throughout the photo book. Only in England would you find people sat in the rain using deck chairs as shelter. Our stiff upper-lip attitude and refusal to be defeated was very apparent in the post-war Britain, cheerfully making the best of conditions that are not ideal. Developed between 2010 and 2013, Pier by Simon Roberts is a comprehensive review of Britain's pleasure piers. Erected in the midst of the 19th century, when inexpensive, easily reachable resorts were developing to accommodate the needs of mass tourism that followed the post-Second World War boom. Pleasure piers are distinctly connected with traditionally British holidays, generally a major investment to entice crowds to coastline retreats, allowing pleasure seekers to promenade parallel to the sea and enjoy the integrated amusements and attractions. The detached photographs in Peerdon encompass mundane scenes of modern England and Englishness in a broad context, representing the social historical value and the stillness of the landscapes, what are today frequently deserted and depopulated environments, devoid of human presence. The closing visual index relating to the associated imagery provides a description of the pier alongside statistics, solely offering the reader further information. The uniformed, alphabetically ordered biographies connect us to the location and form a relationship between the viewer and the environment. Blackpool South Pier, Lancashire, July 2008. The opening photograph in Peerdon constructs a broad scene of a pier lost at sea during high tide. The colourful framework is striking against the bleak English waters, piercing the once still landscape. The central amusement ride, Ghost Train, mirrors the eerie atmosphere which is heightened by the elevated positioning of Roberts' camera. The few people that situate themselves upon the pier emerge as tiny fragments within a vast scene. Seaside resorts play a unique role in our history, heritage and culture, the beach being the backbone of the traditional British holiday. Amongst the difficulties that face many of Britain's seaside towns, the traditional assets that originally prompted success remain and continue to be the mainstay. Henceforth, there is a drive for effective regeneration to address problems and support future growth, sustained by the government and local councils through distinctive development schemes and funding. Ultimately, resorts must learn to adapt to the social and economical changes to grasp their full potential and strengthen their appeal. Coastal erosion mirrors the inconstant nature of British shorelines, inviting photographers to continually return to the seaside landscapes and make distinctive works.
Do we have any questions? Why did you choose to focus on the coastal towns of Britain?
I think it's due to really growing up and having all my education in Coventry, and because it's so inland and central, I've had such a lack of exposure to any kind of coastal towns or seaside resorts. So I think that's really what's just sparked an extreme fascination.
Are there any other questions?
Just wonder whether you think photographing these resorts helps to promote them or actually is making it worse in fact by showing what's happening there.
Personally, I don't know whether it's doing a great deal of good or bad, because I think in regards to Heinz work, it was quite promotional. Even when he was promoting that place, the people would have then gone there and realised that it wasn't the brightly coloured, really exaggerated place that him and the photographers made it out to be. And I also think that we appreciate these kind of large pictures of the seaside because they're quite beautiful environments. I'm not too sure whether it's doing it any good.
Are there any more questions? Thank you everyone for coming, and special thanks to Anthony and Kate for all the help that they've given us, and to the second years for documenting the symposium for us. And also would like to we've got some cards here for Kate, Anthony and Daniel for everything that they've done for us.
Thank you, everyone. What a successful event this has been. I'm very proud of you all, and it's been a real pleasure and an honour to watch the research, the individual research that you've developed over the last term and a half, and to see this fantastic event as the culmination of that. So well done to you.
Website for details of our degree show that will be happening in the coming months. It will have all the details there and keep you up to date on everyone's work processes, and also follow Collective Vision on Twitter. Thank you very much all for coming.
I got just a bit.
Oh, it's still recording.